Hey guys, Philz here with another educational video, and today I'm going to be talking about the Triggerman. Now the Triggerman is actually my favorite class in the game. It also happens to be the default class in Krunker, so that means a lot of people who are just playing Krunker for the very first time end up starting out with the Triggerman. I think this is a good thing because Triggerman should feel like quite familiar to a lot of different FPS players who are coming from different games. And the other thing is that the Triggerman recently got an update which gave it a red dot sight instead of iron sights, which I think makes it a lot easier to aim, especially for new players. So who is the Triggerman good for? Meaning, what type of games translate well to the skills that it takes to be good with the Triggerman? I think those games are going to be games like PUBG, Apex Legends, Counter-Strike, and Fortnite, and I'll explain why. So in PUBG, you have to do a lot of spray control, and the Triggerman's AK kind of feels a lot like the full auto M4 and other full auto 5.56 assault rifles. In Apex Legends, I feel like the AK of the Triggerman feels a lot like the R301, which has relatively easy spray control and should be very familiar when people pick up the Triggerman in Krunker. From Counter-Strike, the closest comparison is probably the M4. The AK requires a lot of tap aiming, which is not really what the Triggerman's all about in Krunker. And in Fortnite, the Triggerman is going to be the most similar to the Scar, because you're relying a lot on that full auto spray rather than the tap timing that it takes to use the Fortnite AK. So what are the attributes of the Triggerman? So first of all, the Triggerman has medium speed. So it's not the fastest, nor is it the slowest class in the game. It's right smack dab in the middle. The Triggerman is able to equip a secondary weapon. The Triggerman has 100 HP, again, like right in the middle. And the Triggerman has a base damage of 22, and the damage probably goes up to around 33 with a headshot multiplier. So now I'm going to be going over some of the strengths of the Triggerman. The first strength is that you're really effective at any range. So unlike other classes like Vince, that only work well at close range, you don't have a huge disadvantage even if I'm really close. For example, in that situation, I was able to quickly turn and land a headshot. So you're quite impactful regardless of what range you're at. And you can even kind of spray people down from across the map. So effective at all ranges. The other benefit of the Triggerman is that the Triggerman is viable in just about every game mode. So whether it be 1 versus 1, free-for-all, hardpoint, or team deathmatch, the Triggerman is pretty damn effective. The Triggerman has a very high clip size of 30 rounds, and if you compare that to the SMG, which I believe has just like 24 rounds, it allows you to spray a lot more without having to reload. And the Triggerman also has a very, very fast reload time, and I'm going to get into a little bit more of that later and why that actually matters. The Triggerman is quite strong against classes like the Detective, and the reason why it's strong against the Detective is because the Detective requires 2 shots to hit you, and in that time it takes for the Detective to pull off those 2 shots, typically you can spray them down. So some of the weaknesses is the fact that you have medium HP. So what does that mean in practice? It means that you can get 1-shot body shot by a hunter. That means the Triggerman is a little bit weak against the hunter. I would say that the hunter is a soft counter to the Triggerman. And you have relatively low run speed. And obviously it's not slow, it's just medium, but you're gonna get like ran in circles by a class like the run and gun. So the run speed kind of, play into a factor there. Even though I think that the Triggerman is viable in just about any game mode, he really excels the most at free-for-all and team deathmatch, and one of the reasons for that is the point system. So if you get a headshot with a sniper rifle, it's kind of like wasted damage because you could have killed someone with a body shot, whereas the Triggerman can come in and land easy headshots and just kind of be third-partying everybody, getting that headshot bonus, or alternatively in team deathmatch, just kind of be finishing off like injured opponents. So I think that in free-for-all and team deathmatch, the Triggerman really excels. In terms of your loadout, so the question of whether you use the pistol or the deagle, to be honest, the answer is that it doesn't really matter that much. And the reason for that is the Triggerman has a very, very fast reload time. So there's actually not very many situations where you're going to want to switch to your pistol rather than simply like duck away and reload. That being said, if I had to choose, I would probably go with the deagle. And one of the reasons for that is that the deagle, it does a base damage of 50, does over 60 damage to a headshot to a hunter. So if you are getting super countered by a hunter and he's like one-shotting you over and over again, you could try to challenge him by busting out the deagle. The other reason why you should consider taking the deagle over the pistol is the fact that the deagle actually has a faster pull-out time than the pistol. So if you are finishing people off, you can actually switch faster, even though you would think that the pistol is designed to finish people off because it has a higher rate of fire. It actually takes longer to pull out. Here are some of my best tips on how to dominate with the Triggerman. The first is that you really want to practice with movement. You have average movement speed, so you can't just like bunny hop around the map to get around that quickly. You really need to master the jump and slide to gain momentum. And I covered that briefly in one of my earlier videos. But basically you just need to jump and land and slide and hop out of the slide to gain momentum. And it takes a little bit of practice, but it's definitely an essential technique with the Triggerman. So after you learn movement, you're going to want to learn how to control the recoil. It's actually quite simple. So you can see here when I'm spraying with the Triggerman, there's an initial kick up and then it actually flattens out. So all you have to do is compensate for that initial up kick, and then you can merely keep the cursor in the same position. After you learn how to control recoil with the Triggerman, you're going to want to refine your aiming technique. And in my previous video, I covered two types of techniques, click timing and tracking. And to be good with the AK, you really need to be skilled in tracking. But in reality, it's a combination of a variety of different movements. So I'll explain. So the first thing that you want to do is acquire the target, so target acquisition. And then you're going to immediately want to snap to that target, like smoothly but quickly, while you aim down sights at the same time. And then after that, you're going to want to control the recoil, and then you just want to track on their head. So aside from that initial snap, you're going to be tracking on their head. You really want to keep the red dot just on their head at all times. I don't really see a point too much in terms of going for body shots. And the reason is because the head hitboxes in Krunker are quite large, and the headshot bonus is, I would say, reasonable. So in a lot of ways, I think that Krunker is actually less RNG than other games which have a really high headshot bonus and a very small head hitbox. So that's why it's best to only aim for headshots when you're using the AK. So those are my tips on how to play the Triggerman. I hope this video was helpful. I really feel like the Triggerman is a strong and balanced class. Personally, I think that the Triggerman is in the top 4 best classes, especially after that red dot sight update. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you do, please subscribe and follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/philzgoodman.